and Miranda would give in to her every demand. But here she was now, telling her that she must learn to do her own cleaning and cooking as well as getting a job. It was preposterous. They had never taught her how to do domestic tasks at the expensive schools Daddy had sent her to. Needlework and piano lessons were the most grueling things she had ever had to tackle up to now. "And just what sort of a job do you expect me to do?" she snapped as she threw herself onto the bed. "Well, as it happens, I heard that they are looking for staff in Owen Owen. You might enjoy shop work," her mother added hopefully. Annabelle couldn't imagine anything worse than having to bow and scrape to awkward customers. She herself had often given shop staff a hard time, making them run here and there for things she wanted to look at. And now here was her mother daring to suggest that the roles should be reversed. "I don't think Daddy would be too happy with your suggestions," she spat peevishly. "Actually, it was Daddy's idea." Annabelle felt the bottom drop out of her world. She had been praying that at any second her mother would chuckle and tell her it had all been a silly joke, but one glance at Miranda's pale face told her that she was dreadfully serious. "And what if I refuse?" Her mother shrugged. "Then there would be little we could do to force you to go out to work. But I'm not at all sure how you would manage. You see, Daddy can't afford to give you your allowance any more." This was the final straw, and Annabelle scowled as her mother looked about the room and sighed. Yesterday's lingerie littered the floor, and clothes that Annabelle had tried on earlier in the day, then discarded, were lying crumpled in the bottom of the wardrobe. "You perhaps ought to hang those back up," her mother suggested, tentatively. "Now that Mrs. Fitton has gone, you will have to be responsible for your own washing and ironing, too, and there's no point in making unnecessary work for yourself." And with that the woman turned and walked from the room, closing the door quietly behind her as Annabelle stared after her. Throwing herself off the bed, she stormed to the window and flicked the snow-white net curtains aside to stare down gloomily into the tree-lined avenue where they lived, in Chalesmore in Coventry. It was one of the very best areas in the city, and the home she had grown up in was magnificent. A rambling Victorian 4-bedroom detached house, set in half an acre that had been tastefully furnished from top to bottom by her mother. A sweeping drive led up to the heavy oak door, and on it was parked her father's gleaming Triumph. Annabelle smirked. That would give people something to talk about, if her father were to drop her off at some shabby workplace in that. But now, as she calmed down a little, she was sure that it wouldn't come to that. She would give it half an hour and then go downstairs and turn the tears on, and all this silly nonsense would be forgotten. She had always been able to wrap her father around her little finger before, so why should now be any different? Humming to herself, she began to rummage through her wardrobe again to find the new dress. She must wear something decent at tonight's party at her friend's house. It was Jessica's 18th, and if her dishy brother James was going to be there, Annabelle was determined she would look her best. Sadly, since the war had started, there had been a shortage of young men, since a lot of them had already been called up. James had only missed it because of a minor heart defect, but Annabelle could live with that. He was one of the most eligible chaps she knew, and his family were positively rich, occupying an even larger house than the Smythes. In a much happier frame of mind, she continued to rummage, taking no notice of her mother's suggestion of hanging up her other clothes. Downstairs, Miranda entered the drawing room to find her husband staring into the fire with a glass of brandy in his hand and a dejected expression on his face. He was worried for the future, for his family. The comfort they had always known was under threat. He glanced up as his wife entered the room, and his face instantly softened, as it always did when he caught sight of her.